would you define the so-called cabal? Who are these people and where are they mostly represented? I.e., what organizational bodies, corporations, etc.?
I would say that you're talking about a certain portion of the corporate billionaire class of the world who are mostly involved in petrochemicals, coal, like old, really, really dirty energy sources, which the people who are involved can skim tons of money off the top. So they make billions and billions of dollars a year skimming off the top of these really unclean energies. And the last thing that those people want is disclosure event, free energy technology. So they have always been the main wall against disclosure information because they seek to lose the most. So pretty much if you're looking at the worst petrochemical, coal, environmentally polluting billionaire industrialists, those are pretty much the enemy. And whoever they are and whoever that they're really supporting and putting their cash behind are, you know, who they're supporting to be the enemy as well. Not saying that that makes everybody who's not them saints, because it doesn't. We have a lot of imperfect billionaires and politicians who are not saints and not perfect people who are at least trying not to be horrible fascist Nazis. So, you know, it's, if you got a choice between and Nazis, I think is better than Nazis. That's my opinion. But it's very complicated, and unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, there's mounds of incompetence on all sides. So to be honest, if the competence level of the neo-fascists and the Nazis was better, it would be over by now. They would have won the conflict and taken over, and it would be over. And if the people opposing that, we'll call them the sort of allies, the traditional sort of Western and whoever else comes into the allies, like as in World War II, they're not necessarily super competent either right now. So we've got this mix of competency and incompetency, and I'm just crossing my fingers hoping that it all doesn't go to shit. But it probably will before the alien invasion, but we'll get to that later. So anyway.
All right, cool. Okay, there is intel that Ukraine has been a major center for the off-world human trafficking, with multiple underground holding facilities, presumably containing hundreds of thousands of people in different locations. Is this true? And what groups are involved in the human slave trade in general?
There is a truth of human trafficking, but it's not what conspiracy people think that it is. Conspiracy people want to say that's all these things with no proof, no evidence. I've asked people many, many times, show me what you got. You got video evidence? Do you have audio evidence? Do you have any documented communication evidence? Do you have any eyewitness reports that you can show me that as an investigator I can follow up on? They can never produce one piece of evidence. Now, on the other hand, I have studied some of what is actually happening in human trafficking and actual human trafficking, and looking at actual police reports and FBI reports and DHS reports. And so there is a thing happening, and it's horrible, but it's not what people are thinking that it is, because what people think it is a distraction from what's actually happening. So it is the biggest distraction to get people to care about human trafficking, which is great, but to care about it in a way that is completely misguided and misappropriated and completely missing all of the actual trafficking that is happening right under their nose, right in their backyard.
And if we mention the space human trafficking to other places and stuff, who's running that? If you know?
Oh, that's a whole other thing. That is a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's off-world, yeah.
Yeah, and the numbers are not even what people would suggest or think that they are. It's mostly an off-world thing, and it's mostly happening in other places and with the colonies and so forth. A lot of that activity has moved off of planetary surface, as most of those people have moved off planet to sort of be at a distance from whatever's happening down here with the stinky surface dwellers.
So, you know, we used to hear the number 1 million people being abducted for different reasons, not just slave trade, a year. That's not accurate anymore.
Not even.
Okay.
No, I would say.
Since when? Since what time?
I would say that what we would define as conventional criminal human trafficking accounts for, you know, like easily, you know, 15 to 25 million persons annually, you know, around the world, which is a pretty good sized number. But when you're talking about covert you know, military intelligence, space program trafficking. That's become a whole other thing. A lot of it because of internal issues that have had to be settled, because we've signed treaties with other species that actually guarantee that we won't engage in certain acts of slavery or slave trade or enslaving persons without, you know, giving them rights and so forth, especially if they're Terran citizens, Terran-born citizens, etc. So we've had to clean up our own slave problems in order to be treaty compliant. So those numbers have come way down, and the people who are really involved in those things have moved those activities outside of the legal sphere in which we can maintain that or do much of anything about it. So there are people who try to stop those things and hunt those people down, but just keeping in mind that people who are really motivated to do it, spend the time, money, and energy on it, are going to keep slipping around as long as they can. So, but because we're treaty bound, we've had to reduce tons of that within Terran space.
I see. But that might still be happening somewhere outside the, I don't know.
Oh, I'd say what I can say about the colonies off-world are that they are probably far less regulated than some of the things that are actually happening in Terran space right now. So, and we keep reaching out and stretching out and, you know, taking new people and breeding more people and engineering more people to make colonies in different places. So once you get farther and farther away, the regulatory ability to ensure that the laws are being obeyed by those people gets harder and harder. And naturally, the people that want to do those things know that, and they're pushing themselves farther and farther to the reach of that activity to continue to get away with what they can get away with. So I have to admit the problem's not solved, but we've made it sort of cleared most of the internal cancer, so it's more of an external cancer.
Got it. All right.
Say give it time. Give it time.
Cool.
Things are changing. Give it.
There was intel that in the late 40s, early 50s, there was a joint US-USSR operation in Antarctica that involved the deployment of nuclear weapons against the German bases. Do you have any data on this?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And it's correct. Okay, so, and the intel says that after the US and USSR supposedly lost to the Germans, the USSR alone delivered 20,000 Soviet soldiers to the Germans in space to be used on the moon and Mars as labor and troops to fight the local races. Is that true?
I don't know about that specific number, that specific exchange, but what I can say is there was an agreement that brought the Schwabenlanders into a grouping in which a lot of people from around the world were being pulled into, and there were all some sharing of those personnel for experiments and augmentations and, you know, psionic experiments, genetic experiments to make better soldiers and so forth. So there definitely was a lot of different countries that were throwing people into a pool, and that was being spread around.
But that was not a tribute to someone for a military loss.
It may have. It may have. I don't not privy to that specific exchange, so it may have.
Okay, got it. Okay, so what intel do you have about the Russian portion of the SSP? Are they a separate SSP? What's their main specialty and function, and what's the Russian?
My understanding is that most of the departments now in different countries have been absorbed and amalgamized into the larger space program. So whatever, I would say comparably, the Russians' secret space program is not unlike the United States Air Force's covert space program, which is not that good, but everything and everyone is get funneled up. So personnel, material, resources always get funneled up.
Okay,
it doesn't always come back the other way.
This is now a joint endeavor. And what is the name? Do you have a name for that? Is it like a joint SSP international?
Yes, it's the Earth Defense Force, the EDF.
The Earth Defense Force, yes. The Russian SSP then is now a part of the joint endeavor. They don't have any special, function that has, specialty or something that they do.
Not that I'm aware of. My understanding is that there's some tiers of separation, but as much of the maximum personnel material technology is funneled upward into a very, very tight cluster of personnel that don't always want to let that information technology drip back down the other way.
Are the space Germans currently in alliance, at war, or neutral with the group that you represent?
I would say that definitely not. We wouldn't definitely call them neutral or in alliance. I would say that we're in Cold War or hot war in some cases with them right now. So yeah. They're making their move. Everyone knows they're making their move. Everyone knows we're doing everything to stop them from making their move. So yeah, we're not friends.
Okay, next question along the same line. Has MDF or any other SSP branch ever been under German command?
So yes and no. The Schwabenlanders has certainly had a part in the fleet and have also done their best to maintain their own fleet and as much of a separate fleet as possible while having their hands in anything that they possibly can. So they have their own colony on Mars for sure, and they have their hands deep into the cookie jar of the MDF in some ways, or had. There's a lot of changes there that I'm not aware of right now because there's so much in flux after the worker revolt that happened. I don't know, what was that, like 8 years ago or something like now, 7 or 8 years ago, when they had the worker revolt in the colonies, and that destabilized and upended everything. And that's still a changing situation.
So how is it possible that they were somehow in control of MDF if MDF is a separate, Earth kind of body?
I won't say in control of. I will say having their hands deeply involved because we've had to share certain technology and spaces and information with them because there's been a treaty for decades where they're all part of the global Terran Earth covert military space program.
I see.
So we've known for decades since the end of World War II that they were just biding their time until they could try again, because Nazis got to do like Nazis got to do and try and take over the world, because that's just what they do. They suck, but they got to keep trying until we squash them. And I'm all for squashing them. Thank you very much. But we knew it was coming, but we've had to play this kind of Cold War cooperation thing. But no, I'd say it's getting pretty ugly in some cases, but I don't know that anybody's just actively trying to shoot anybody out of the sky yet, but give it a minute. That's coming.
Okay. How many worlds does Terra have bases / representatives on today, to your knowledge?
I would say we have bases and embassies on no less than, gosh, probably over 50 or 60 worlds right now. Bases and or embassies. Yeah, that's growing. That number grows every year.
Got it.
Every year, that number grows.
Are there any assets from the Baltic countries in the SSP, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and what are their capacities? Do you know?
Again, there's always been a goal to filter up. So superior personnel from all ranks, all services, all military branches are always being looked at and asked to come join and do other things. And so I'm certain that there are. I have no idea what numbers, but pilots, engineers, soldiers, probably all the things that everyone else does. They pick the best of the best. I'm sure they got a few in there.
Right. So the next question, you told me that it's classified, and the question was, how many Terran assets are serving in the SSP right now? What percentage does it in real time and the parallel timeline? Now, in your estimation, and I know it's classified, in your estimation, okay, so you know that, but you can't say. I see, okay. I mean, in your estimation, is it tens of thousands, or more?
Oh, more.
More than that, okay.
More.
Over 100,000?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. When was the time travel first used in the SSP? According to William Tompkins, he said that the 20 and back system started working in 1980. That's kind of late, I think. That's what he said. And judging from, for example, Penny Bradley's testimony, she was sent to Mars as early as 1959 and brought back. So that's we have like the 50s now. So when do you think the system of 20 and back and whatever time travel was established?
I know that we were working on it. We had engineers working on it on a theory level for sure in the 50s. They were doing practical work and testing for sure in the early and mid 60s. So I would say by the early 70s, they would have had something functional, operational, that they could use, even in a limited capacity with a limited number of personnel that they could, you know, travel forward or back per year or per month or whatever in the early stages. But that would eventually, like everything else, become standardized, industrialized, so that they'd have as many units, as many machines, as many engines, as many jump gates or whatever that they needed to move, as many personnel as they needed.
So that's I would say that's not counting the ETs doing that, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I would say based just on the trackable beginning of, you know, drawing table, you know, testing stage, 50s, 60s, we would have had functional, applicable technology that we could have been applying in the early 70s.
And it's interesting that you have parallel time travel programs like Andrew Basiago's, who is saying that US had the time travel by 1970, which is quite late as well, right?
Right.
So there was like parallel researches going on at the same time.
Oh yeah, always. There was never just one department working on something. You know, you got multiple departments, and whoever gets there first gets there first. Right. And maybe though that's not even the program that someone is most going to know of, because that's going to get shuffled over here real quick, do something super secret, super first, try to get an edge on someone before they can develop it, before it becomes standardized. That's always a thing that someone's trying to do with military tech.
Okay. How is it that the competing SSP groups seem to all have access to the same pool of human assets? That's an interesting one.
Again, there's a treaty. Yeah, there's a treaty that everyone basically agreed to and that everyone signed, that of all the personnel across the world that would be selected and pooled up, that they would go into a pool that's managed by an independent bureaucratic organization, which dispenses those personnel based on requests, need, and priority and all that stuff. So there's an independent agency that decides to dispense based on requests.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the groups that are maybe not meshing well with each other. Like, for example, you have a person who goes to the Navy on Earth, right? And then gets sent, for example, up to the moon to serve in Kruger, a German mercenary group. And after that, gets sent to Mars to serve in the MDF. And after that, gets sent to the German fleet to serve there.
Yeah.
So
it's like that sometimes. People get sent all over the place sometimes. Yeah. I've been bounced around.
I mean, who's deciding that? I mean, how can that be if you're saying, for example, that your group, the Navy, you know, is it the Navy or the Marine Corps?
They're both are so closely associated with each other.
So if you're saying that you are not, you know, friends with the Germans, and then someone gets sent from the Navy directly to the Germans, or some rogue German group as Kruger or someone else, how is that working?
Well, I would say that in the past it worked very roughly, and that it didn't really work so well. It just worked very roughly. And I would say as we've moved along in time, there have been some stops of certain personnel getting to other departments, and the flow of that has changed a little bit for sure as time has changed. And I'd say that whole department's about to get upended for a bunch of reasons.
So, for example, if someone's serving in one branch like the MDF, who can come and say, okay, I need this, and this person in my fleet somewhere over, you know, on Pluto or something? That is
well, there's a process of requests. When I was in the MDF, there was actually a number of times when we did missions that were off-world, actually, and we would get requests that would come into our department or through our command structure, and our CO would come to and say, look, I need this many, I need 6, 12, 18, 24, whatever, you know, number he felt was based on the request he was asking for. I need, you know, 22, 24 people who want to go on a 7-day, you know, off-world mission. I don't know where it's at. You don't know where it's at, but when you get there, you'll know where it's at. you'll get told what to do, and then when you're done, you'll come back here. And it would get sent off different places in the solar system sometimes, or space stations, not usually too far, but we get sent off for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, do a sidebar, and then come back. And it was really based on requests and availability. So because, and there's some massive bureaucracy that has all of those people knowing exactly where they are, knowing exactly what their qualifications are in this massive computer that's smart. It thinks, it's not AI, but it thinks. It's an organic computer. It's not the same thing. And it can sort all of that information so that requests can come in, and it can literally, within a few seconds, spit out, here are the most likely personnel that we can expend to do that without suffering any negative consequences anywhere else. So it's a massive bureaucratic thinking organic computer that sorts that out.
Okay, got it. Can you comment on the alleged historical division between the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force SSPs and their respective ET curators? Is there a hot conflict between these two branches?
Yeah, there sure can be. So the Air Force really got a lot of their stuff early, as before they became, when there was still the Army Air Corps, before they actually became the Air Force. So some of the earliest air incidences that were occurring occurred over air bases or in the desert, you know, in America, and were handled by the Army Air Corps, which then became the Air Force. Well, the Navy was, you know, if something fell into the ocean, guess who picked it up? The Navy picked it up.
Right.
So the parallel programs were anything that landed on the ground, the Air Force would come and scoop it up. And anything else that landed out in the water somewhere, the Navy would go and pick it up. And, you know, that was sort of their parallel programs of like picking up garbage and scraps and pulling them in for reverse engineering. So that started some different thinking. And because the Army, to be honest, is very different thinking than the way that the Navy thinks, because the Navy has what we call a shipmate attitude, which is you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean or a submarine. Everyone matters. Everyone counts, because everyone either fights for their lives or everyone dies together. So if there's a fire, everyone fights the fire. Even the captain fights the fire, and the doctor fights. Everyone fights the fire or everyone dies. So there's no, even though there's tiers of hierarchy, it's just not the same as when you're in the Army. When you're in the Army, you're either, you matter and you have rank, or you're fodder. And that's just it. That's just the difference. You're just fodder if you're nothing. And then if you claw your way up enough, then you have some matter to you. But on a ship, it's not the same. Everyone has to matter, or everyone dies in an emergency.
Okay, so and you guys actually sometimes have skirmishes and conflicts.
If there's, okay, so I mean, there are Navy and Marine Corps Special Forces teams who operate on the land, obviously. And so if something crashes and they're close enough, they're going to try to get it first. And if the Air Force is close enough, they're going to try to get it first. And I was actually at an incident when I was in training where a vehicle came down, hit the ground, and we secured the location. Some other guys came to secure the location and said, well, we have orders to take this. And we're like, yeah, well, we have orders to take it. And they're like, yeah, okay. And they, you know, backed off some number of yards. And our team leader was like, okay, we need to hunker down and take cover. They're going to start shooting at us in a second. And we were better shots, I guess. And so, you know, they ended up retreating, you know, because enough of them got wounded, or maybe we had better cover. But yeah, it was absolutely a hot bullet fight for that piece of technology between Navy guys and Air Force guys.
Got it. So what about the ETs you guys are working for? The U.S. Air Force, who are they working for primarily, as opposed to the Navy?
Ooh, that's a hard one to answer, because there are multiple species involved in engineering, technology, genetic augmenting programs across all military branches. And right now we're in the dozens of species. So I don't know that I would be able to answer who is mainly sort of assisting or overseeing Air Force operations in the ET world.
Yeah, I think we will we'll get to that later because there are questions about this too.
It did now the old, if you talk about olden days, 50s, 60s, it would have been the Zetas, it would have been the Grays, but we sorted that out, you know.
You mean the Air Force? With the Air Force.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And the
absolutely.
Navy?
The Navy, it changed very quickly for the Navy, and they were dealing with another group that was called the Cortium. Completely different group of species that looks very similar to humans, talks more like we do, eats food more like we do. But
is that like the so-called Earth Council?
No,
No?
these were ET species that are humanoid.
I see.
There's a lot of them, actually. There's a lot of humanoid ET species out there, but there's a lot more of everything else. But there's a lot of humanoids.
And the so-called Earth Council, do you know anything about them?
I mean, there is a loosely agreed upon sort of like similar to a United Nations organization that is Agarthan diplomats and Terran surface diplomats and a few ET diplomats that have interests because they have colonies inside the solar system or on the planet. There's a few very isolated colonies of extraterrestrial species that came here a long time ago and are occupying a very tight cornered space where they just want to hide and not get hunted down by the people that annihilated their entire planet, their entire species, other than the ones that are hiding.
Are they working on cleaning the solar system from things like slavery, you know, inhumane acts and so on?
Oh yeah, we have to because of the treaties, and I would say that we've made tremendous progress at that in the last decade, and we're just going to keep making progress at that. Once we finish this war with the Schwaben Loungers and we kick their asses once and for all, I think that will really settle it. So I'm ready for it to just get on, because let's just kick their asses already. They're assholes and nobody likes them, so let's just kick their asses and be done with it. Send them packing.
Okay. You said that there was a change in the SSP management in the past 20 years or so. Can you elaborate on who replaced whom and how the policies changed?
Oh yeah, I would say that you know, for many years the Air Force certainly had a stranglehold on the intelligence community's access to information, and that changed. That became much more of a Navy, Marine Corps Special Section operation, because we just started sending more people to brief people. We just started sending intel officers to brief politicians, to brief diplomats, to brief military, other lower military personnel, you know, and the lower security echelons. We just went around and started briefing people and just started going around the Air Force and saying, we don't need your permission to go talk to someone and brief them on something we think they have a need to know. We don't need your permission to do that. So.
Okay, next. Are there deep space SSP craft operating under the new Space Force right now?
Not that I'm aware of. They're a shell of an operation, and they have nothing interesting that I'm aware of right now. No one's sharing any real interesting technology with them. They're trying to get up some good satellites. They're trying to do, you know, I'll give them credit where credit's due. They're trying, but they're a new military branch. It's very difficult for them. Oops, sorry.
Okay, got it. Are there military advisors, liaisons, and even security assets in the U.S. government and other governments on the ground? And if yes, what races are involved?
Again, we're dealing with dozens of races that are interacting with military intelligence agencies right now. And yeah, some of them, you know, are passable humans. Some of them are using technology to look like passable humans. Some are not, but dozens. We have dozens of species.
So in the U.S., yes.
Yeah, everywhere, around the world.
Around the world. And they work permanently with the government.
Yes, and they are permanent advisors until their jobs are over, whenever that will be.
And I heard that there, for security assets, I mean like bodyguards and stuff, you know, security services. Also?
Sometimes, yeah.
Why is that? Why are they used?
Oh, mostly because you need someone that can protect an asset psionically. And sometimes you need an ET that's real easy for, that comes from a species that just has, you know, high psion per second. So
isn't that a liability to use someone off world for, you know, such a sensitive thing?
Not if they've passed the security check and the background check. I mean,
Okay.
these are people who have resumes and reputations and things as well. I mean, so they're not just some guy that we hired that we met somewhere at a bus stop. Hey, you want to come work for us? Like, they're vetted employees with resumes.
Okay, I have to ask you this. There was a photo when Trump was signing the Space Force bill, and there were two people standing beside them. There was a woman and a man. I think a man was like a red-haired person, and there was a rumor that those two were ETs. Could that be true?
I believe I've seen that picture, and not that I could tell. They looked like
regular
people.
humans.
Maybe not. Maybe
Right.
a little weird people, not perfect people, but no, I don't think they look like ETs to me.
Okay, so when they do work with the governments, there is only a very, very limited number of people that know that they are ETs, right?
Oh yeah, always.
Okay. So the president himself may not be aware that they are actually
Right. He might not. Yeah, might not.
Interesting. Okay. Is there any connection between the SSP and the chemtrail phenomenon?
Not directly. Chemtrail phenomenons or geoengineering trails, if we refer to them in-house, are primarily methodology to block out some of the UV from the depletion in the ozone layer, which, they're are concerned about mass cancer rates and so forth, and mass die-offs and crops and so forth. So some of it is what we call geoengineering spraying to try and sort of protect the UV layer, add some UV layer. There are also a certain percentage of them that are being used by what we have here, state-run agribusiness, to prevent fungal blights and massive pests, massive infestations of insects that they can't get with crop dusters with small planes over fields. They literally have to hit it from the sky and crisscross all over the place so that it disperses down over wide areas in hoping that, either fungal blights or bacteria or insect growths don't overtake crops or natural environments due to climate change screwing with all of the insect.
What about the negative stuff that people are referring to with the chemtrails? I'm not an expert, but what I'm feeling here, the question was about is the AI spread, the 5G, the control, everything that's.
We think that there's some mood affectors that maybe are designed to keep people sedate sometimes or agitated at other times. There is a less than 5% of any and all spraying that may have some weird CIA experiment shit in it, but most of it's fairly mundane, not necessarily healthy for people based on the delivery system chemicals and the aluminum and so forth, which isn't super healthy. But sure, there is some weird stuff that we would like to get regulated, but it's less than 5%. Most of what's happening is geoengineering related.
Right. Okay, got it. Okay, who are humanity's current top 5 ET allies/foes, and what systems are they from?
That's a tough one, laying out top 5s. Again, because we have dozens of friends and allies that are here right now. We have hundreds of species that we're trading with, and we have a growing number of pests and foes that don't like us any more than we like them, that are well into the dozens at this moment as well. So those are growing lists all the time.
Off the top of your head, like the top 5 that you know of right now.
Let's see. If I was to say top 5 helpers, we certainly have the Centauri. They're our nearest neighbors, so they're hanging out a lot right now. We have what else? There's Central Galactic. Which one? The Andorrans have been helping quite a bit, not to be confused with the Andorians. There's two of them. One's small, one's very tall. I would say that the Zeta, I want to say it's which is it? The Zeta A's, Zeta B3s. So there's a number of subcategories of the Zeta reticulans. We have the Zeta A's and the Zeta B's, and then you sort of have the Zeta A1s, the Zeta A2s, the Zeta A3s, and then the Zeta B1s, the Zeta B2s, B3s, and then there's a B4 and A4, I forget. Two of those are pretty nice. They're pretty swell. They're pretty agreeable. And I believe the B3s are doing a lot of busy work for us right now because we've made an arrangement that they can keep an arrangement with. The other ones didn't want to keep arrangements. So those are doing pretty well. I would say, what was the ones that just showed up? I'm losing track of it.
How about the traditional five, you know, the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, and so on?
You know, I would say that they're still acting as advisors, but you know what? I think we've made some cooler friends since then, to be honest with you. We've gotten out in the galaxy and we've made some cooler friends that are helping us get some shit done a little bit faster. Some of our old friends were really the kind of friends that wanted to see us do things really slowly because they didn't want to see us get ahead too quickly. And, you know, kind of screw those friends. We're really about the friends that want to help us move things forward right now.
Right.
So we've got some better friends than our traditional friends right now.
Okay.
But they're still around helping out.
Right. So the Syntel came out recently from an Air Force source about the Nordics from Procyon A and B and Sirius A and B, the tall whites from 82G Eridani and the ancient orange grays. So these three races, the Procyon and Sirius A and B, tall whites from Eridani and orange grays.
That sounds like a report from about 1997, if you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a really old report that someone's putting out as brand new information. That sounds about 20, 25 years old.
Actually, this person said that as the Nordics and the tall whites are actually working on the SSP craft, so the deep space exploration craft is.
Oh yeah. We've had them working with us for decades, and they still do.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would say if someone was listing those as our main allies, that sounds like 25-year-old information.
Okay. Do you know anything about orange grays then?
No, I'm not sure which ones are the orange ones. I know that they're different shades, and I'm not sure which ones are the orange ones.
Okay, got it.
That could be the B3s. You know, I'm not sure. Right. I'm not super familiar.
Okay, you once said that the progenitor races view Terran development very differently. What was the main insight they gave you?
That long-term thinking. So, you know, they're really looking at centuries, thousands of years, millions of years of evolutionary development when they're looking at a species, a planet to develop. When I was having a conversation with a ET millions of years old, and I was asking about, so what's your plan here, you know, for our planet and our species? And he kind of laid it out for me, and I don't think I'll go into it, but I was like, okay, that's cool. How long is that going to take? And he was like, about maybe another 2 million years. And I was like, 2 million years? And he's like, oh, no, we've been at it for like 18. We're almost done. And that just blew my mind for a second that, you know, this has really been a 20 million year project. Apparently, you know, as he was saying, he says, we've been really managing this for like 20 million years, for 18 million years on a 20 million year plan. We only got 2 million left. Well, we're almost there.
Right. And where were those guys from? Can you say?
A star that we call Trogda, or is listed in the intergalactic directory of worlds as Trogda. The planet is Bogdia.
You mean the frog people?
Yeah, they're the frog people.
Okay.
That was the frog guy.
And they were running a project here.
All over the place.
No, I mean with humanity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is just one of their little side projects over here. So yeah.
Okay.
Just one of many little side projects they got.
So they actually engineered. I mean, not engineered us per se, but engineered the civilization here, or some kind of.
No. I would, again, their thinking is so much more long term. They really like go in and tinker for a minute genetically, and then sit back and go, okay, let's wait a couple thousand years and see what happens. And then let's tinker a little more. Let's kick back and wait a couple thousand years and see what happens with that. And then tinker a little more, and then watch it for a couple thousand years, and then tinker a little more, watch it for a couple thousand years. So it's a constant process, but on a scale that, you know, what we think of as a lifetime, we'd be born and dead many times over in just one phase of them doing one little, change, and they go, let's see how this works.
Right. So they are one of the tinkerers with Earth as well. What you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay. Everywhere that they can, they are tinkering.
Oh, okay. What about the humanoid races? The progenitors.
Lots of them. We got lots of them. We trade with them. They love our beer. They love our stuff, and we sell them lots and lots and lots of beer.
Okay. What can you say about the, there was a lot of, channeled information from the, the same top 5, Pleiadians, Lyrans, Sirius, Arcturus, all those. Many of these beings are multidimensional. They're like from the higher dimensions and densities.
Some of them are. I'm gonna interrupt real quick though and say that there's a bunch of people who profess to be channelers of higher dimensional intergalactic species and who are con artists, liars, charlatans, and grifters. Okay. And I'd say that's well more than, again, like 75–80% of people who claim to be channelers are absolute liars and grifters.
Okay.
I would say dismiss 80% of anything you've ever heard from channeled information. Probably garbage.
Can you give me a hint?
What was the question again?
A hint on a hint on who might be or what might be said. There's a lie.
That would be a whole nother conversation, because one of the things that I have observed over the last 10 years of doing this are the vast number of liars, con artists, grifters, intelligence agents who are taking advantage of people, telling them what they want to hear, delivering deliberate psychological operation information, or in other cases, just lying to grift and get money from people, and just tell them different versions of what they want to hear, and watch the internet and get the buzzwords off and then start throwing the buzzwords out. But most of it's garbage. Most of it's absolute liars, garbage, and people who are full of shit. Here's how you know. If someone tells you exactly what you want to hear and tells you that the world is happening and unfolding in a way that's exactly the way you want it to be, and exactly who's the good guy and bad guys are that you want them to be it's probably a pack of lies.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's another conversation, I guess.
It is. It's a long one.
You said that the Draco have been mostly purged from the Terran space. Do they still have control or alliances with the cabal groups in politics, banking, Hollywood, etc.?
I doubt it. I mean, the remnants of what we understand is still here, has been less than 100 for a number of years, and I understand that's a dwindling number. And they
100 of what? Of personnel?
Draconians.
Yeah, I know. 100 of like senior personnel, officers.
Any of them, period. 100, period. Under 100 for
on the surface, right? Somewhere.
Anywhere on this planet.
Right.
Anywhere. They're all hiding underground right now. They're all hoping that we won't hunt them and find. If we find them, they're done. But no, they're either hiding or gone.
Right. Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. In your group's opinion, is there such a thing as a positive human ET hybridization agenda going on right now? And would humanity generally be interested in a further ET hybridization?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that most of the ET hybridization programs are for our benefit and for our evolution and our well-being. That doesn't mean that they all are, but most of them are.
Right.
So whether we like it or not, they're helping us develop and evolve, by some actual genetic splicing and tinkering. But it's everybody. It's everybody in the whole world. No one is a special, hybrid. Everybody on the planet is a freaking hybrid. So no one's a special hybrid. Everybody's a hybrid. It's not special. We're all hybrids.
Right. So there is no hostile hybridization agenda going on that you can, pinpoint.
Oh, I would say that we've eliminated as many of those as possible. Any of those programs that are still running are not operating lawfully and are being done so, under a radar.
Who would that be doing that? That is
hard to say. There's a lot of sneaky ET species that don't like their activities being traced. So Tough call. I would say, you know, there are probably two types of species that might still be trying to do that. You have a type of species that thinks that they know better, and so they might, whether it's against the law or not, might do it anyway. Versus those who are just have an agenda, a personal agenda of some kind, and therefore think that what they're doing is right for us or right for them or whatever, and would also be doing it unlawfully. Anyone who's still engaging in it as a lawful exercise is doing so with an approved, scientific engineering outcome process that can be, basically regulated by intergalactic observers.
Okay. Are the Zetas doing that lawfully right now? That is
no, they have been exited from the solar system
right.
a number of years ago, so they're not doing shit right now.
Okay. So, and finally, about disclosure. From your group's perspective, what is delaying the disclosure right now?
A surprise in the war in Ukraine at the moment. That has actually been the delay.
Was that on purpose?
I don't think it was. I think it was a bit of a monkey wrench, and we're just going to have to adapt to what is now happening now instead of what we thought was going to happen.
Okay. Is the hoax alien invasion scenario still on the table? Was the insectoid invasion you mentioned going to be real? And was that insectoid group called Trentaloids? What's the strategic logic behind the invasion scenario?
Yes, and
so
no.
the option is on the table. The hoax option is on the table. It wasn't going to be real.
It's real. It's real. Yes, it's happening. Yes, it's real. It's not a hoax. There will be real aliens. There will be real people dying. There will be real explosions. That's very real.
Okay.
So
Trentaloids?
Not that I'm aware of. That does not match the information that I have.
Okay. What's the name of the group that you have?
I am not allowed to say at this time.
Where are they from? Can you say?
I do not know, or I'm not allowed to say at this time.
Okay. When is it going to happen?
Any minute now. It's event driven. So to be honest, watch the world conflicts get hotter, watch civil conflicts get hotter, and really the worse it gets, the closer we're going to get.
So why do you need to wait until something bad really needs to go down for it to happen?
Because you want it to be so bad that everyone comes together immediately to fight the alien threat.
But why can't you just do it now? I mean, not do it now, but allow it now, I guess,
because psychologically that doesn't work on half the population. Half the population wouldn't psychologically accept it. Half of them would still fight amongst each other and hate each other. The only way that it works is when it's so desperate and so threatening that everyone clings to each other as Terrans and their only hope for survival against an alien threat. There's just, there's just too much bigotry, too much racism, too much hate from across nations, countries, skin colors, religious doctrines, that if you don't have a horrible threat that threatens everybody equally, people won't come together.
That's the logic, right? So, so what I'm saying is, are you waiting for something else to go bad on Earth, like a war or a crisis or whatever, to allow that? Or is it just going to happen on its own and you're just expecting it very soon?
Not my department to make that decision, but I would say that the escalation of more events around the world, and there will be, and the escalation of internal hot conflicts around the world, which there will be, will escalate that and will bring us closer and closer to the point where the inevitability of the invasion will occur.
Why is that?
But to be honest,
what's the connection?
Anytime.
What's the connection?
That's hard for me to say, because it's hard for me to say based on the information that we have available exactly what everyone's motivations and whose side everyone's on right now. It's a little fuzzy there, deliberately.
I mean, what's the connection between it getting worse on Earth with the invasion itself? Aren't they like separate events, separate processes?
No, not at all. That's what I'm saying. They are quite parallel and interwoven in a way that is not separate.
What you're saying is they're already here.
Not the invading species. The
Right.
invading species has not yet arrived. We'll know when they arrive.
So how is it going to be orchestrated, the invasion, with what's going on here?
Oh, like I said, the worse it gets terrestrially,
Mhm.
the closer we're getting to an invasion, because they want as much conflict as possible as the, let's just call it the psychological point where fewer people lose their shit and go crazy and shoot themselves in the mouth or burn themselves alive and their entire families, because so many other things will have happened that most people will go, oh, well, of course, alien invasion next. But if people
Right.
aren't so psychologically stressed by the escalation of threats, it will overwhelm a certain number of percentage of the population.
How is it?
So
Yes. How is it better than just announcing disclosure right now? Or
again, what I just said,
or rounding up. I'm sorry. Or rounding up the troublemakers that that are against disclosure and just initiate tribunals and everything.
Again, the answer is because somewhere between 15 and 25% of the general population of the planet would lose their mental and psychological stability and kill themselves and or their family members and or people in their communities. There would be mass murder, mass suicide, and mass insanity amongst just that 15 to 25%. A 15% that it used to be a solid 50% of people around the world across populations were mentally, emotionally unstable. That number has grown depending on what part of the world you're in, what part of the country or whatever your country, my country you're in, that number is anywhere between 18 and 25% now. So depending on where you are, that number is higher. And if those people are overwhelmed psychologically too soon, then they will lose their shit. They will kill themselves. They will kill members of their own families, and they will kill their neighbors because they will have lost their fucking minds and been overwhelmed by a mind that cannot grasp that kind of change. But if you go threat, 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 then eventually it's like, oh, aliens, sure, let's do that. And then people are more psychologically ready. Then that number of mass suicides, mass murders drops down into the single digits somewhere, and not into the double digits if we're lucky. So it's to mitigate mass murder and mass suicide, to be honest with you. It is to mitigate mass murder and mass suicide.
I see. Okay, that's very clear. And we have two to go. What are the chances of the elites leaving Terra, or having left already, when the transition occurs?
Some have, some continue to do so. I would say that the richer and more powerful that someone may be, the more likely is that they're at a farther distance than close to here right now, because they know it's not going to be good for them.
Okay. And finally, any progress on the holographic medbed tech development?
No.
Okay.
Sadly, no. I think that it's all been a financing issue, and so I think we're finally about to deal with the internal financing and stop dealing with external financing. But we'll see if it matters. We'll see if we can get to any kind of development before there's a technological shift because of an invasion. But not giving up on that one. Not giving up on that one. Still working on it.
Do you think they will disclose it before you can develop anything?
It really depends on, I think we're likely to see enough injuries during the invasion that they're going to need to use the technology, and they're going to need to, we're going to need to see it. So it's not my department, but I think so. So
the invasion is inevitable as far as you're concerned?
As far as I know, yeah, absolutely inevitable.
And we don't know the time or the hour, the day or the hour?
Just the worse it gets, the closer we're getting.
Okay. Well, thank you, thank you, Randy.
My pleasure, Alexander.
This was very good. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a good one.
All right. Take care. I got to eat my cold dinner now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.